Okay, so for sewing this term, we're going to be using some Binca. And this is Binca. As you can see, it's got lots of holes. And if you put a ruler on it, it would tell you then how many holes there would be to a centimetre. So these, they're only about 2 or 3 holes to a centimetre. If I was doing something like cross stitch, I'd be looking at things which are about 14, I think is 14 holes to an inch on those. So as you can see, it's made up, it's a bit hard to show, but it's woven. So the one you've got in class, you'll be able to see a bit better. And it's got the warp, which comes down. That's the thread that's going down. And the weft is the one that's going across it. That's quite, we don't really need to know all those words, but it'll help us now when I show you how to secure your needle at the end. So here's our needle. And we are using, I'm just trying to see where I am on my screen. We are using a tapestry needle. So, oh, it's a bit hard to see on here. The eye of the needle is very big, so it's easier to thread. I'm left-handed, so I'm going to hold my needle in my left hand. If you're right-handed, you would hold your needle in your right hand. Because I'm left-handed, I'm going to start at the left-hand corner. Now, I've never been right-handed, but I pretty much assume that people who are right-handed are going to start on the other side. We're going to practice first a basic running stitch. Now, we're not going to start right on the edge, because what we're going to do when we finished our sampler, we're going to, I'll just show you how I do it now with my needle. We're going to pull some of this off, like this, which gives us like a little frayed edge. Because as you can see, even though I've tried to cut it accurately, I might be a little bit wonky in one corner. So we're going to start, I'm going to count in 3. 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to come in 3 from the side. 1, 2, so I'm going to move over 1. Okay, so I'm going to come up from the back, because you can see my needle's at the back, my thread is hanging out. Oh, I forgot to say, I have tied a little tiny knot at the end of my thread just to stop it pulling out to the fabric. Can you remember when you were in nursery and we used to thread beads and there'd be a little knot at the end to stop the beads running off? This knot is just to stop it coming back up through the Binca, otherwise all your hard work will be for nothing. So with my needle at the back, I'm coming up. And what I tend to do, can you see you've got a little bit of a tail there? That's with a bit of the thread. I hold that in my hand. Don't go and try and stretch your arm out, because what you'll often do is you'll pull your needle straight off your thread and then you've got to thread it again. Right, so let me try and position myself so you can see this better. My needle's at the top. I'm going back down the next little hole. My hand goes underneath and I pull it again, making sure I'm holding onto that tail again. Okay? And as you can see, that is my first running stitch. So you come up from the back, hold that end down through the next hole. Okay, up from the back, down through the next hole. Up through the back. And you know, when I first started sewing, I used to say this inside my head. I didn't say it out loud because it would be really annoying, wouldn't it, to everyone that I was sat near. And then you go up. And that's what you do until you get to the point when you're going to have to turn, which is easier than you think. So I'm just going to do some quickly a second. Up, down, up, down. Now, when you get really good at that, what you can actually do is go, can you see I'm coming up a little bit, I'm not pulling it through, and I'm going straight through the next hole. Can you see then what I've done? And I'm pulling and I'm doing 1.5 stitches at a time. So I'm just going to do that quickly a second, just so I can show you how to turn. So this is the easiest stitch. It's a basic running stitch, because it's just running, and as you can see, it's a totally straight line. I'm not thinking, oh, I'll choose a hole down here now. You're choosing the next hole each time. So I'm just doing the quick ones now, but what I'm actually doing is down, back up, down, back up. Now, oh, look, I'm coming to the end. So what do I need to do? I am now going to turn. So I've got my needle in the up position and I'm just turning my Binca in my hand and I'm going to choose the next square. And you know, even if you're one over there, that doesn't matter. We'll just, when we come to fraying it, so can you see I've got less holes this side. Let me check it when I am on my camera. And more holes this side. Absolutely fine. Because when we do it, we will just make sure we fray off another side from there. Okay. There we go. Now imagine now, let me see if I can do it quickly. We're going to run out of thread. So I'm going to show you now how we secure. So imagine now I've just run out of thread. We're going to turn it over. Can you see as well? The front, there's the front, apart from the fact that you can see a knot, the back gives you exactly the same stitch on a running stitch. It doesn't for all your stitches. And even though I had a teacher once from school who used to say, the back needs to be as neat as the front, no one is going to see the back, okay? So it doesn't matter. Now I'm going to get one of the wefts. Can you see what I'm doing here? Can you see let me see if I can try and take off auto zoom. Let's see if I can come in closer. You see my needle is just under some of these cream threads of the Binca. And I'm just going to pull my needle through and I'm going to go through again. Because it is, at one point we used to have to tie knots. But when you're working with little tiny bits of thread, if you've come to the end, it's really hard to tie a knot. So there we go. So then I can just get my scissors and snip that off. That's the running stitch. Easiest stitch to do. And that's going to be our first one all the way around. So what I'm going to do then, it's going to come all the way around. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to carry on with that a second. I'll take you off the screen. Otherwise you might get a bit fed up of watching my hands go up and down, and I'll show you what it's going to look like. Okay, so as you can see, I've gone all the way around now with my running stitch. And then what I'm going to do now for my next stitch, I'm coming inside. So I'm going to thread my needle. Now you're going to be using different thread to me because it can either be called thread, cotton, silks, all different names for the same thing. My thread is made up of 6 strands. Yours is 1 single strand. So I'm just going to split my thread a second. I didn't bring home the thread that you were using, I'm afraid. Let me see, have I got one like it? Just check. I might, was that one? No. No, let me just split it. So what I'm going to do with this one, so if you're doing it in the house, you might have this, your mums or your nans or your aunties or your next door neighbours might have this sort of stuff. So I'm just going to hold it. I'm going to take out 1 thread. Now I'm actually using 4 threads for this. So I'm going to take off 2 and I'm left then with what I want. I'll put those back together because I'll use those. At the moment, I am making Christmas decorations. Let me show you. So I am making these little things in my craft room, and I'm thinking we could make some of these in Craft Club. So here's my needle. So I'm going to thread. What I tend to do, I know it sounds a bit disgusting, I put it in my mouth just to get it a little bit damp so you get it all together. Oh, like that. With the other end then, I'm going to tie myself a little knot. Like that. And once again, I'm starting at the back. Now, this is called a back stitch. So we're going to go back on ourselves. You're going to come up, exactly the same as a running stitch to start with. Yeah, and you see that looks just like a running stitch. This time, we're going to miss a hole. Can you see, like, no, actually it's exactly the same as the running stitch. We're going to come up to this one, but then we're going to go back and down through that one. So can you see now you haven't got a gap between your stitch? So you're going to jump over a hole, come up, and you're going to go back into that one. I was too busy looking. At the moment, my camera's on my television, so it's a bit hard for me to see what I'm doing. So here we go again. I'm coming up through this hole. I'm going back down this hole and pull it down. Again, hold it onto the tail. So we're not coming up this one, we're going to come up the next hole. If you can hear a noise in the background, my dog has decided to go back to bed. Back down that one. Back up this one. Back down that one. So this is called back stitch. A back stitch. Because you're coming back on yourself. There we go. And as you can see, we haven't got any gaps like in our running stitch. So again, is another straight stitch. So nice and easy to do. If you look at the back, you can see that it looks like a continuous stitch. And my dog's now doing a funny little sneeze in the background. Sorry about the noise. Coming up and down. Up and down. And, you know, it's really therapeutic. What we'll do then, once we've done these samplers, now when I was a little girl, everyone did these. And then you would take it home from a present for your mother. And my mother used to put a lamp on it or something. It's like a coaster or a placemat. And when I had my mother's from when she was in school and did it. And she had my grandmother's as well. So this has been going on for many, many years. So I'm just going to finish this one off a second. I'm not going to secure it because I want to show you your next stitch that we can do. Right, so here I go again with my thread. I'm going to use a little bit of orange because it's going to stand out. Now I've separated this one already because I've just used it for my penguin's feet on my ornaments. Here we go, let's thread my needle again. Now this is a tapestry needle, as I say, because it's got a very, very wide eye on it. And it's also got a blunt end. Oh, I'm trying to find myself on screen, there it is. So it shouldn't hurt you. Try not to get in your eye or anything though, or your friend's eye, because that would hurt. What we're going to do then, after we've done samplers, you can use this sort of thing and make bookmarks. So I'm tying a knot. Here we go. This time, I'm going to do a diagonal stitch. So again, I'm coming up in the corner like this. And whereas we have been going straight to the next one, I'm not. Can you see, if you can imagine your Binca as a little square, 1, 2, 3, 4, we're going to come down in that corner. Okay. Then, there's two ways of doing this. If you wanted to do a continuous cross stitch, can you see where you've come down? Can you see the square above it? If you go into there, like that, and you're going to come down here. So you're making a little square. Now, what you could do now, if you wanted to, you could either miss a square out and do the same thing again. Do a diagonal stitch, then another diagonal stitch going the other way. And I think it's important that to try to be really neat, you need to keep making sure. So I always go, and I think this might be again because I'm a lefty, I always go top left to bottom right, then top right to bottom left. Can you see I have got a complete square then in between each cross? Let me show you a different one now then. So this time I'm going to come again, top left, bottom right, top right, bottom left. I'm not going to miss a square now. I'm going to go straight back into this one, top left, bottom right, top right, bottom left. As I say, this is probably because I'm left-handed, so you'll do whichever feels comfortable, but I'm always going the same direction. I'm not thinking, oh, I think I'll start in this hole now and go across. There we go. So can you see the difference? I've done 3 crosses, exactly the same. This one's got a gap between it. This hasn't. Can you see that? So this one's got a cross, blank square, cross, blank square, cross. This has got just cross, cross, cross. And we're going into the same hole of our last stitch. There we go. Now when I do cross stitch to make a picture, this is how you do it. You don't have crosses with gaps in it. You have a continuous cross. Now then, I'm going to show you a quicker way of doing this now then. And this is also where you could use a different colour. So we're going to just do the diagonals like this. This is another stitch on the sample I've got to show you. Just diagonal stitch. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. You're just doing a half cross stitch. So we're going top left, bottom right, top left, bottom right, top left, bottom right. So can you see we've just got the half of that cross stitch. Now then, let me unthread that a second. I'm going to bring back in some green. So if you were looking for something different to do on your next row, bring in a different colour. And once I finished, I'd have to pretend that I'd finished the whole way around, if that makes sense. So I wouldn't just do those few and then bring in a different colour. I would do it all with a half stitch, all the way around. Then I'm going to come back on myself. So this time I'm going to do it differently. I'm going to go top right, except I didn't do a very big knot. Let's try that again. Top right, bottom left. So can you see I've got then a green thread, a green diagonal stitch going over the top of my orange one. Back down, back up, back down. I keep going off your screen, I'm sorry. Like that, can you see it? There we are. So we got a few choices there. You can either just keep it as a half cross stitch. So I'll do some over here. I'm going to go underneath. It's going to look an awful mess on the back of mine. So I'm going to go just like this. So I'm just going to have a half cross stitch. That's also a stitch on its by itself on a sampler. So if you want to do that, you could. It's a nice easy one as well. Just going up. Let me just move my orange. Now then, my teacher in primary school just shouted at me for the mess on the back of mine at the moment. She did used to shout to me quite a lot actually. So I'm just going to go up and down. That is one stitch. Or you can do going one way, come back with a different colour. You could do the joined up cross stitch and then you can do singular ones. So at the moment we have got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different style stitches that you can use in your sampler. I've got one more to show you. So I'm going to unthread these. I've got a completed one in school to show you. I'm just going to trim these off. If you're cutting at the back as well, just another little point. Don't chop your knot off, otherwise it'll all unravel. And your mum will go to put a lamp on it or something and she'll think, oh, that's strange. It's got all these little threads on it. Right, let's use a bit of red. I'm going to use 2 colours for this one to begin with. Now, it might be a time before you get to this stitch because when you first start, you're thinking all the time about the stitches. But at some point, and it took me a long time, I must be honest, in school I used to really struggle with sewing and now I do lots of it. Not as much as I do card making, a scrapbook, and we'll be trying lots of that as well. Here we go. I'm going to move this is quite a long piece of thread. You don't want a piece of thread really that's that long. Can you see this is quite a long piece of thread because it will get tangled. And then you'll end up punching your friend in the face next door. Luckily enough, there's only me in my room. So I'm going to do a normal running stitch. So I'm going to do a quick one just to show you what it's going to look like. Now, you could do it using 2 different colours. Okay, so there's my normal running stitch. And for the row now, I'm going to do a different row underneath. I think like this. So my next row then, I'm not going to come up in this. Can you see I've come up in that hole there? I'm going to come underneath. I'm going to go across one. So then, can you see the effect there? Looks a bit like a brick wall, I find this one. Like that. And again up there, like that. So that's another stitch we can do. Next one's going to be a box stitch. So I'm coming over here. That is again a running stitch. Just a normal running stitch. Like that. But I'm going to do one on the top, one on the bottom. Then I'm going to make it into a box. Now, on the one I've got to show you, I've done it in 2 different colours because it looks more effective. Let me just, I can't seem to find the back. There we go. I've just swapped hands on you, sorry. I can sew left and right-handed, but I find it a struggle. So now I'm going to miss a square. I'm going to go to the next square. So I'm not going to come straight up there. I'm going to jump over and do the same thing. So I'm going to do a running stitch at the top, a running stitch at the bottom, like that. Then I'm going to come back to where I first started, like that, and go down. Then I'm going to go on to this one and come down. There we go. I'm going to do that again. Running stitch, top, running stitch bottom, back to the first hole, up and down. And what you're really doing is like a sideways running stitch, isn't it? There we go. That's just giving me an idea now for another stitch I think I've done. I've just gone top to bottom each time. Like a single, like just a single stitch like that. So it's all just different ways. And if I were you, I would try and use a different colour for each stitch. Or you could have like a repeating pattern. So you could have like a blue stitch, a red stitch, a blue stitch. If you want to do it that way, you could. You could teach my children about repeating patterns. So there we go. All the different stitches we're going to be using or trying.